So if you're watching this video, then you're probably thinking about migrating to the GFX system, which is what I did about a couple of months ago. So I just thought I'd share my experience with you guys. And I've written a list of pros and cons, which were important to me, and I think would probably apply to many of you guys if you're thinking of coming to the GFX system. So if you're coming to the GFX system, you're probably coming from full frame. So you could have a Canon or Sony system. And if you're coming to GFX, it's likely that you're coming for photography and not video, um, unless you want to use the GFX 100 Mark II, which is around £7,000 here in the UK. So I'm going to assume that you're coming here for photography. So I've kind of got a list of pros and cons, which were important to me. And as I say, I think this is actually going to be important for many, many people. So if I had to give you a 2-minute breakdown as to why I came to the GFX system, it'll be for the following reasons. So the first thing would be the Fujifilm colors. If you know anything about Fujifilm, you know that the colors that the cameras render are pretty amazing. I have never really experienced the colors that I get from Fuji from any other system. I use Nikon. I had the D750 and I used that for a couple of years. And then I moved to the Canon R system where I had the Canon EOS R, the R6, the R5, and the R6 Mark II. And suffice it to say that I wasn't generally impressed with the colors. It was a fine. I worked with them. My clients never complained, but a personal choice was Fuji colors. And if you know anything about Fuji, you know they have their film simulations. And I've recently shot a wedding where I did everything in classic chrome, and the images were unreal. I was just super happy with them. So if you're coming to Fuji GFX, you're coming because of the colors. The other reason is the medium format look. So if you know anything about GFX, you know that the sensors are larger than that of full frame. So the medium format look, which people talk about, and if you don't know what the medium format look is, the medium format look is that you can have a wide field of view, a wide angle, and a shallow depth of field. Um, uh, and those two things typically don't come together, especially on full frame. You'll find that you have to have like a 35mm lens, which is f0.95, to get that look, or a 20mm f1.1, if that's even a thing. I don't know if that's a thing. So the medium format look is, you know, that environmental look that you get, not just a picture of a person or an object or a subject with everything blurred out in the background with all the compression. You can have the shallow depth of field without the compression, and I think that's the key. That's the thing that I noticed that is different with the GFX system. So you're coming for the colors, you're coming for the medium format look, and the other advantage, of course, is that you can adapt older DSLR lenses to the GFX system, right? So I have been using this recently. I've been using the Sigma EF 50mm f1.4, and I shot a wedding with this. This is a 50mm on a full frame, right? So on medium format, this is 40mm, and the f1.4 gives you the equivalent depth of field of an f1.1 roughly, if you apply the maths properly. So this is a lens that is now what, £400, and can be adapted to GFX perfectly without an issue. Now, obviously, the GFX system has a larger sensor, right? So the image circle technically on the lenses has to be larger to give you the coverage, whilst a lot of these Sigma lenses actually give you really nice coverage on those lenses, and sorry, on the cameras, and you don't have to worry about a massive amount of vignette or anything. In fact, the vignette that I got on this was just like I would get from a full frame system. So, you know, that's an advantage, that I can have cheap lenses adapted onto the GFX system. So those are the three pros, right? If you wanted to know about the pros, Those are the three pros. So you got the Fujifilm colors, you got the medium format look, and you got adapting cheaper lenses, right? So this lens is 400 odd quid. You do have to adapt with a decent adapter. So this is the Fringer EF to GFX Pro. So I'm going to put this on here. There you go. You can see this, right? This is £459 currently from Amazon. If you can get it cheaper elsewhere, that's good. But this is, it's not a cheap adapter, but it's a good adapter. It has an aperture ring on it as well. You can hear the aperture ring there. So this is, you know, these two things together, they don't add a massive amount of weight. You know, the adapter is not too huge, but it actually allows for you to open the mount up and start using it with other lenses, right? Those are the pros. So if that's enough for you guys, you can stop watching this video now, and you can go ahead and buy your system. But if you want to know about the cons, there are cons to every system, of course. The first thing is, and I alluded to this a little while ago, is that the cameras can be expensive. So the GFX 100 Mark II, which is their flagship camera, is £7,000 brand new. If you go to MPB, you can have it for about £5,800 with a 6-month warranty. If you go to WEX, you can have it for about £6,200, £6,300 if they ever have any used ones in stock. They do have one at the moment, and I believe it's a grade 9 or 9 plus. And you can have that for £6,200, and that comes with a year's warranty. And WEX are really good at looking after you. Their customer service is really good. So they're expensive, right? But you don't have to buy the flagship camera. I purchased the GFX 100S. So this was their second 100 megapixel camera. And it's got phase detector autofocus on it, which the older 50S Mark II didn't have, the 50R didn't have, and the 50S didn't have. So the GFX 100S, 100S2, the GFX 100, and the GFX 100 Mark II all have phase detect autofocus, right? The other three have contrast, so they're a little bit slower when it comes to focusing and probably not as reliable. So it's an expensive camera, right? I mean, this camera I bought for around £2,500. This was a grade 9 plus from WEX. It's in brilliant condition and it works perfectly. I got a year's warranty with it. And that is on par with like a Canon R5, right? A Canon R5 is probably about £2,700 at the moment. So it's not that different. And you're getting for the same price or a bit more or a bit less, sorry, you're getting a medium format sensor. So definitely more in the price bracket that would apply to so many more photographers now than it ever has been in the past. Prices are coming down on these cameras, obviously. The system is obviously becoming quite established. So yeah, they're expensive cameras. If you buy a secondhand one like I did, you could get a good deal. The autofocus is generally slower. If you are coming from a full frame system like a Canon R5, Canon R6 Mark II especially, or the Canon R3, you're going to be thinking, oh my God, this is painfully slow. Now, if you're a sports photographer, a wildlife photographer, or, you know, you photograph moving objects like cars going around a track or anything like that, this is not the camera for you. I do not recommend that you buy this. I haven't used the 100 Mark II. People say that it's good enough for sports. I'm going to hazard a guess and say the full frame cameras are probably still better. The lenses that you can get with them, like the 70-200, those lenses are super fast and you're more likely to get shots in focus, right? And so if you're a fast-paced photographer, coming to the GFX system isn't for you, okay, as far as I'm concerned, because the autofocus is too slow. The cameras are big and bulky, okay, as well. So that's something that you have to think about. If you want to buy native lenses, then you're going to spend a lot of money on them, right? Because the native lenses are expensive. Native lenses for Canon and Sony are also very expensive. I'll give you an example. A 55mm f1.7 on the GFX mount is used, or like a grade 9 plus, is like £2,100 in the UK. It really is quite expensive. If you were to buy a Canon RF 50mm f1.2, you could probably buy that for about 1,600. You can buy the RF 85 1.2 for around 1,700. And they are phenomenal lenses. They are amazing, amazing lenses. Very, very fast. Focus acquisition is brilliant. I've used them both extensively. Always was very happy with them. And before I came to the GFX system, I used them both. So lenses on the Canon system, especially on the RF system, have started to come down a little bit in price. I know the mount is also going to be opened up to third-party lenses. So you're going to start to see prices fall on the RF system, which makes those lenses a little bit cheaper, whereas the GF lenses, the newer ones, are really expensive. The GF 110 f2 linear motor lens is around £2,000 new. I think it can be had for about £1,500 used. So these are expensive lenses. And the other thing that you have to be really kind of aware about is that on the Fuji system, if you go for anything less than f2, if you buy a lens which is wider than f2, the autofocus motors that they use are the DC motors, or they're not the linear motors. So autofocus is not fast on those lenses. And I don't really know what's going on, because Fujifilm seem to struggle to pair or couple the linear motors with their wide open lenses like the f1.7, right? And it shouldn't really be a problem. Now, obviously on the X mount, I'm using an X-H2S and the 18mm f1.4. That's a linear motor lens, right? I can't show it to you because it's on the camera, but it's about this big, right? It's not very big at all. So because it's much smaller, it's an APS-C system, they can put the linear motor lens motors inside that lens. But when it comes to like big honking lenses the size of this, they struggle to do it. So as far as the engineering goes, I would say that Fujifilm, as far as their focusing and research and development, they're probably still a few years behind full frame, and you just have to be prepared to accept that and go with that, on the basis that you're getting those beautiful colors and you're getting that medium format look. And if that's what you want and you're prepared to sacrifice the AF speed, then it's a great system to be in. So the other thing is there's very little third-party lens support for the GF system. So I know that this company called Zongi Optics, they create the Mitakon 65mm f1.4, which is the equivalent of a 50mm f1.1. They also have an 80mm f1.4. I don't think that one is as good. This is a real favorite of mine. It's a manual focus lens. There is no weather sealing inside this lens, and it's a beautiful lens. It's generally sharp, wide open, and it's a great starter lens. It's about £400 on eBay if you can find one, or £500 if you have it imported in from China, I think, wherever it comes from. I think it's a Chinese company. So other than that, guys, you're going to be stuck with either native GF mount lenses or adapting lenses with the Springer adapter, okay, which, to be fair, I think is completely fine. Autofocus is, on the whole, with this, generally quite good. I shot a wedding with it. I'll link that video in the description, and you can go back and have a look at that. I was really happy with the images that I got out of this lens. So, let's just backtrack a little bit. You've got this 100 megapixel camera for £2,500, maybe a little bit cheaper now. I think on MPB it was like 2,300. You've got this 50mm f1.4, which is about 400. So what's that? Almost £3,000. And then you got this. So for £3,500, the adapter, with £3,500, you got yourself a camera, an autofocus lens, which works great, an adapter. And if you go for 4,000, you pay about 4,500 for this. For £4,000, you've got yourself two lenses and a great system. So those are the cons, right? There's one more con that I've got written down here. Okay. Oh yes, of course. This is a 100 megapixel camera. If you were to shoot raw files with this, uncompressed, raw files, 16-bit, you're looking at 200 megabytes of file. Now, I think when I shot the wedding the other day, it was 400 images, no, 600 images just out of this camera, right? So 6 times 2 is 12. That's like ridiculous amount of gigabytes that you're going to get out of one wedding. It really is a lot. So you have to think about where you're going to put these raw files, right? Because as a wedding photographer, and I have paying clients, I can't just delete the raw files afterwards. So I have these expensive SSDs. This is a 4 terabyte one. I'm going to put this up here. This is a 4 terabyte one, which I use for editing. And I've got a few more, right? These are expensive. They're like £200 each. Maybe on offer you get from about 150. So that's a cost there you have to think about, right? Then when you archive these files, you have to have another hard drive. I've got an 8 terabyte hard drive over there. So all of this adds up. You know, this is all expenses. So it's not just about buying the camera. It's about getting the SD cards for the camera. It's about buying the storage to archive all of your stuff. And not only that, you have to think about the processing power of your computer as well. I use a MacBook Pro 2021 M1 Pro with 16 gigs of RAM, and it handles the 100 megabyte files, no problem at all. You're not going to have an issue with it. It's not going to be fast, like blazing fast, but you're not going to get like errors or anything like that. Your computer's not going to overheat. I barely hear the fan come on my laptop. So, you know, this laptop is what, second hand now, I don't know, about £1,000. So that's another expense, yeah, you have to think about. So moving to the GFX system might appear to be great right now because the cameras have come down in price, but think about all of the kind of additional costs that go with it, because that could be enough to break the bank, and you know you could struggle with that, or it might just be enough for you to say I can't do this. So do I recommend it? Well, for my style, I definitely recommend it. I've talked about this in a previous video. When I was using the Canon R5, you know, I was taking more photos. I'd come home with like 2,000 photos, and then I'd have to cull them and end up deleting so many of them. But right now, when I'm using the GFX 100S, I feel like I'm only taking the photos that I need to. I might take 2 or 3 instead of 10, and the style has become a little bit more intentional. So I'm not just firing off loads of photos. I'm actually planning my shots. I'm thinking about my shots a little bit more. And I'm also thinking about, you know, the space I have on my SD card and things like that. So, you know, I think it's made me a better photographer in that I'm become a little bit more intentional. I don't have the luxury of fast autofocus, you know, and with this camera, I'm not going to shoot a bride walking down an aisle. I don't feel confident with it. Not with the adapted Sigma lens. As soon as you start capturing moving subjects, it's just not, you know, you're not getting the performance. So for that, I use a Fujifilm X-H2, and that's really good. And I pair this camera with the 18mm f1.4, which I'm filming on right now. And I typically have this lens, which is the new 16-50 kit lens, on that camera because it's great for video work, but because it's a little bit dark, I've swapped the lenses over because that's a 1.4 lens. So I decided that having an X-H2 with me is really good for when the bride's walking or moving down an aisle or anything like that. I can capture those shots. I also have, and I think it's up there, I also have a Viltrox 75mm f1.2, which I use for portrait stuff on this camera, and that looks great as well. So, you know, if you're going to own the GFX system, you're not going to really have this camera on its own unless you're a landscape photographer and you don't need a backup camera, in which case it's fine. But if you're doing this for paid work, you know, you've got clients, you've got weddings or, you know, portraits or whatever, you need to have a camera that can do all the fast-paced stuff, and then you can have the camera that's going to do your style kind of shots. So you have to think about that. Now I've got the X-H2 and I've got the X-H2S because I use that for video work. So cameras can soon add up to be really, really expensive. And you've got to think about the fact that are your clients going to, number one, say, oh, wow, thank you for delivering a photo which has the medium format look. And I noticed that you've done this in classic chrome or classic negative. I don't think your clients will really recognize it or notice the difference. And I did this purely for me. I love the look. I love that style. And I'm quite proud of that style. So I feel like I want to deliver that to my clients, and my clients pay well enough that I can afford this. So you have to ask yourself, if you're going to go in and, if your clients are prepared to pay you the money that's needed to upgrade to this system, it might work. If you find that you're still quite new to photography, earning you money, you might find that it's probably best to stick to a camera that is not as expensive and maybe not migrate to the GFX system. Yeah, in a couple of years down the line, the 100S2, which is the successor to this camera, will become a little bit cheaper. That's around £4,700 used at the moment. You might find that's a bit more accessible. I know the autofocus on that is a lot better. I haven't tried it personally. I think I will hire one day and have a go at that one and see if there's a big difference. I don't see myself upgrading to that anytime soon. Maybe a couple of years when it's about £3,000, I might be able to buy one. And the 102, that really is a very, very expensive, very niche kind of camera. And I think a lot of people have sold that and bought the 100S Mark II because the processor and the sensor is the same and the innards are the same. So I think they're feeling like they're not really missing out on a great deal. So look, coming to the GFX system is expensive. At the moment, I've given you three pros. The first one was Fujifilm colors, medium format look, adapting cheaper lenses, and the cons were expensive cameras, slower autofocus, expensive native lenses, very little third-party support as far as lenses go, massive file sizes, storage, etc. Do I regret it? No, I don't regret it, because for me, it's made me a better photographer. So it's great for me. I'm going to stick to the system. I don't see myself going back to full frame anytime soon. I doubt I ever will. I think GFX will only get better and cameras will become faster, and Fujifilm will up their game eventually. And they will make these cameras more accessible to more and more photographers. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I wanted to share them with you guys. So you have to decide whether you think this is great, a great system for you to be investing into. It's either you do that or you stick to what you've got. Remember, your clients are unlikely to say that they see a difference. And really, this is about us as photographers more than it is about our clients. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment in the comment section below, because I would really like to interact with you guys. I want to know who my subscribers are. I want to know who you guys are. I want to know why you watch my videos. I'm relatively new to the YouTube space. I feel like I have a lot to offer, which is why I'm here making videos. I have got a couple of videos in the pipeline which I need to film and get out. But we're getting to 23 minutes and I like to keep my videos less than half an hour. So I look forward to receiving your comments and your criticisms or your praises, whatever you have to say. See you in the comment section. Thank you. Bye.